Hey everyone, welcome back to Dimensional Wellness. This is DeeDee and I am so glad to be here with you today, exchanging some energy. Okay, I'm still in a really contemplative mood. So today we're going to be talking about a very interesting dream, and I'll probably either put it in the description box when I get a chance to, or maybe I'll even come back at the end of the recording, because right now I'm taking my little mom break, and talk about the days that I had these dreams. So the topic of discussion today is Freemason activities. Okay. Freemason. Now, I really don't know that much about the Freemasons. I have only had actually I did recently, maybe 3 or 4 dreams, over the year. Well, maybe 5 or 6. Maybe 5 or 6 dreams over the years about, how would I say it, where I knew that this dream specifically was connected directly to them. Oh, well, I guess 7. A few. I'll say a few. Where in the dream, I knew in the dream it was directly connected to a Freemason on the planet. That's what I would say. Some of these dreams do connect to some of the same concepts, but since I have never been in obviously a lodge or anything like that, I can't say for certain other dreams are definitely Freemason Freemason are definitely, Masonic versus Rosicrucian versus Templar versus something like that. I've had a Shriner dream before. I've had a few Shriner dreams. So anyways, I'm just saying that this dream though, I specifically know that it was a Masonic dream. Do I want to talk about the, okay, so I'll talk about 2 really short ones that I had, and then I'm going to get to the big one, okay? I'm going to do it that way. Okay. So the first time that I consciously remember a dream about something in this realm, as far as someone directly talking to me, was back in 2018. We were staying in a place that seems to be connected to my family in general in New Orleans. And I remember it was a specific day during a very interesting time period, because during that time period, I also, I got my first crystals, which my first 2 crystals were labradorite and lapis lazuli. So I had a labradorite, oval pebble, and then I had a triangle lapis. And during that time period, I put the labradorite, I believe, on my forehead. And it was so crazy. It literally transported me into some different brain state or something like that. And I saw this darkness that was child, it was so crazy. If I hadn't had experiences already and I had that experience with the labradorite, I probably would have thought that there were demons or something in the labradorite, or I would have gone crazy or something. But I've had a lot of experiences, so my mind can take a lot of crazy stuff. But there is this rolling blackness, and this is not just the blackness, and nobody's gonna get any weird backlash or anything from this. If you do, you can email me and I'll, try to help you walk through it. Because some people are very, very empathic and intuitive, and sometimes it might trigger something in your universe. So if you do have something, you can email me. But so anyways, this kind of rolling darkness or whatever. And there was a face that came out of that, and by this point, I was just frozen. I was just okay, this is happening. I don't know. I don't even know where to categorize this. But anyways, in this rolling darkness, this face came towards me, and he told me the word Necronomicon. And it was really funny because I kept saying necromancy, and he was like, not necromancy. And he was like really upset. And I was like, okay, I don't know if this is the devil. I don't know who this is, but he had to check his attitude, because I don't even know, like at this point, like I feel like I had heard even necromancy like in passing, but I did not know what necromancy was. But I understood that necromancy and what he was talking about, they at least had necro in common. So my thought was like, okay, I'll just, look up necro, and then that will help me figure out what he's talking about. But it was like he was almost like spelling it out like necro and then icon. And then he was like necro, like he was almost putting like necromancy and then icon over the end of the word instead of the ancy part. So I was, I never seen Necronomicon before, child. So I was just like, necro icon? Like, what are you saying? Like, can you just... But he was, trying to spell it out, but, I just didn't have a reference for it, so I didn't know what it was. So I was just like, okay, I guess I'll find it. So at that point, I didn't know what it was. I think I tried to research it, and, just when you don't know what something is, you just pass it up. So I probably saw the Necronomicon, but I just didn't even think that it was a part of that. And so I probably looked it up for like a week, and then I just like stopped looking it up, because I was just like, that was weird. But that was also during the time frame where I had this visit from this Poseidon energy. That was also during the time period where I had the Sedona dream, which I might have taken the Sedona dream off. But it was a very spiritually active time period. It was a very spiritually active time period. So anyways, somewhere during this like 6-month process between, like summer solstice 2018 and then my birthday 2018, because the Necronomicon thing was very close to my birthday. It was very close to the Sedona thing, with Makot Brooks, and I'm gonna definitely put that one back up and then talk about the Makot Brooks connection. Especially, he just had that really awesome interview. Not just, it was probably like back in June, probably last year, that he had that really good interview with his friend Marcus something. Such a good interview. Oh my gosh, such a good interview. And it was so weird, because when I had this dream with him back in 2018, I was like, oh, he must be connected in, because I was having a dream about him in connection to Sedona. And so I was like, oh, he must be really connected in. And then he did this like interview last year, which is 2023, with Marcus, about going to Egypt and the experiences they had. And I was like, I cannot wait until me and this guy meet up. Like, what's the past life connection? Because he was such a specific person. I'm not going to talk too much about him in this one, because it's actually wild how the events and everything happened. It was actually bananas. But anyways, so during this wild period in time, and I think it was closer to my birthday, so like December 2018, I remember it was just like this time period where on this particular day, I don't know when it was, on this particular day, Ray like just took all of the kids to the park so that I could like finally get some rest. And as he did that, I was like walking around the house, and I noticed that like my thoughts were starting to ruminate. Now, this is very interesting, and I've had this experience before, especially pregnant with the boys specifically. That's a whole nother conversation, but where sometimes my thoughts would ruminate to the point to where I would only think about one word, and that rumination would cause like this, I don't even know how, I'm guessing it's channeling. That's what I'm guessing, that it's a form of channeling. But it would focus on a word like love, right? And I would ruminate on love so hard that like it was like my face, my whole body would just like become frozen. And I would focus on love and then narrow it down to like just the L sound. And it would seem like, and I was conscious, so an aspect of me was consciously observing myself my mental state ruminating on this L, and I'd be like, what in the world is going on here? And I couldn't move. It was like, when you're on those rides and you're like going down super fast and you like can't pick your head up. It was that type of feeling, and I'd just be ruminating on L. I mean, it was just so crazy. So anyways, I was like starting that ruminating process. And so during that process, I understood that there was a being coming in. Now, when I first had that experience, it was like back in 2017. I had no clue what was going on. But by this time in 2018, I still didn't exactly know, but I knew that some energy was present in the house. And for some reason, like when they stepped in, my mind would start ruminating. So I had to kind of catch myself, right? Because I was like pacing, back and forth, up and down the hallway, blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, this is so weird. I'm like, oh, okay, there must be an energy present. So anyways, this is my experience and I'm going to stick with it. Okay. I felt like the presence that came through was Aphrodite. Okay. And when Aphrodite came through, she's a very peculiar energy. I will say that. And what I will say is that she definitely is not the goddess of love. That's not really her forte. I know, and a lot of people would be like, of course she is. She's the goddess of love. Her energy when it came through, it was definitely more of like a femme fatale type of energy. And I wouldn't necessarily consider that a love frequency. That's not really a love frequency, femme fatale. And a femme fatale in a very spy... I don't know if I'd necessarily say spy. I don't know, because that did come to my head. But in this type of way of like not letting the male presence know what the female presence is doing. So almost like, when some women use their allure and sensuality and things like that in order to entice men. But they really have like a very, very logical side. I wasn't going to say good head on their shoulders, but that could get very tricky depending on how far they take these things and what they're actually doing. I mean, it could get tricky, but a very logical side. So what she was actually coming to tell me was actually about spatial depth and perception and being able to control the simulation to a certain extent, in whatever way that means. Because I've heard so many people say this is simulation and everything like that. And I just, I know it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's like the cool thing to be like, I get it. But I'm like, if we really did get it, then like, we'd be seeing a lot more Mandela effects. We'd be seeing a lot more crazy stuff. Reality probably be way less structured. Like I just, getting it in a way of like being able to actually utilize that information and actually make changes. Like I've not met someone who said they understood that time is an illusion and they're not still bound to time. Like they're like, you know what, I'm about to go back to 1935 and then I'm going to go to 2065 and I'll be back in the flash of a second. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I know maybe conceptually, but like I understand a lot of these things conceptually, but actually bringing it into fruition and utilizing it, I'm like, then we don't understand it. Like, we don't really get it. So anyways, that's what she was trying to teach me about. And I still didn't get it, y'all. I was just like, I don't know. Like, I hear what you're saying. I conceptually understand what you're saying. But how I actually move from here to there. And I'll tell you a little bit about what she told me. And I did see this in a dream, but still, like I said, I don't know. What she told me is that you are the center of your reality, okay? Like, you have that sun glyph, especially when you're dealing with the zodiacs, okay? You have the sun glyph, which is a circle and then a dot in the center. She's like, you are the center of your universe, okay? So not the multiverse, because literally each person is their own universe. You have your own reality. You are in your body and you are in relation to everything around you. Okay? conceptually, I get it. And she was like, what you experience as the outside reality, aside from other sentient beings, like, our kids, partners, animals, things like that, the things that we consider to be quote unquote non-living structures, right? Like our house and things like that, cities, states, buildings. She said that they are movable and that you actually don't have to move where you are. You can just you can just change the scene. And you can take all of the players, in a sense, with you and move scene. And this is coming during a time period where I really wanted to go and visit San Francisco, Marina District in San Francisco, for like some time travel stuff, research and stuff. And she was like, you literally could just imagine yourself in San Francisco, and eventually the non-movable items will move. I know. I was just like, girl, I got nothing, okay? The level that I got nothing, I'm like, okay. But I also know that, because it did come back around. And this is something that I offer too, just to my friends out there. When you don't understand it, you just be like, okay, just bring it to me later on in a different way. And that usually is kind of what they're doing. It's like planting these seeds anyway. And usually, eventually, sometimes it takes years, because I didn't have the dream of where I got a tangible experience with that until like last year. So that's like 5 years later. Okay. But it usually comes back around, and it slowly kind of sows these seeds of consciousness over a period in time to where you start to understand what it's talking about. Okay. So after that experience, that was not a dream. Okay. After that experience, I ended up falling asleep because it was a lot of energy, right? If you are a medium and you speak to spirits and things like that, even through QHHT, I've talked about that it's usually really, really draining. And so I usually fall asleep. But anyways, through these energy exchanges, it can be very tiring. And so I end up falling asleep. Now, the interesting thing is that when I fell asleep, I can't say that I astral projected, because I didn't know that I was sleeping. But it did feel hyper realistic. And I do know that it was actually happening. So I was in the hallway of this apartment that we were living in at the time, and I was walking towards our back kitchen, okay? And when I was walking towards the kitchen, I kind of caught consciousness, and I was like, wait, why am I walking towards the kitchen? Because I knew that like the last thing I was doing was laying down. So I didn't know like where the transition between me waking up was. Oh, it's 7:22. Interesting. I didn't really know where the transition was between me laying down and then like just why all of a sudden I was standing in the hallway. But again, I was just like, okay, I guess that's normal. I don't know. So I just walked to the kitchen because that's what I felt called to do. So as I was walking to the kitchen, I started hearing this like ruckus at our back door. Okay. So our back door was the back of the kitchen, and we were on the second floor of it. And that door was actually closed with with a big old piece of wood. So I guess the door wasn't working. So the landlord put like a big old piece of wood over the back door or something. I don't know how that was working, but my point is that we were on the second floor, and there was like this really rickety staircase, but me and Ray just kept it closed because of course we have kids and we didn't want anybody to fall down these rickety stairs back there or to hurt themselves with this piece of wood over the door. So we just never really touched that door. Okay. Like maybe once or twice since we were there, we touched it. So it's a door that we never used. And so I'm looking at the door, and it's like somebody was like jiggling the handle on the door. So I'm like frozen. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? So next thing I know, this guy walks in, and I'm be a little stereotypical, like a typical New Orleans looking man. Okay. Brown skin, a certain type of swag that they have. he had these long, huge, long dreadlocks, locks. And he was a little bit, well, I won't say a little bit taller than me. He's probably like 5'10", something like that. And he walked into the house so confidently. And I was like, who are you? I'm like, who are you? And so as I was looking at him, he was like, I'm a Rothschild. And it was like he was walking through the kitchen and he wanted me to like follow him to the front door, which I was like, why didn't you just use the front door? Like, why are we, do you know what I'm saying? Like, why are we doing this so weird? Like, you could have just knocked on the front door and you could have like just come inside and sat and had a car. I don't know. Like some of these people are just, I don't know. Whatever. But it was like, I guess he was in a rush because he was walking very fast. Like, it was like he came through the front door and then I was like, who are you? He was like, I'm a Rothschild. And so he just started walking past me where I was standing. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to be following him. So he was walking through the house and I was like, I thought they were all white Jewish men. Like, you don't look like a Rothschild. And I was kind of sort of playing, but he took it so seriously. He literally stopped walking and he was like, you didn't know that they're Black Rothschilds? And I was like, I mean, I did not, but I was like kind of joking. Do you know? Like a joke? Have you heard of like a joke? But he was so serious and he was like, ugh, I don't have time for this. Come back when you know something. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, and who exactly are you? And then he literally left. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I need to do my homework. And why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because I just heard this Billy Carson interview where he was saying that the Freemasons go back to, which is very interesting, go back to these brick masons in ancient Egypt that were considered to be the Rothschilds of Amun, which would be the light shields of Amun-Ra. And that translates to the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds. The Rothschilds. That's quite a tongue twister. And so when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, like, finally, because I've heard different things, but he put it together and I was like, oh my gosh, finally I get it. So maybe I'll do an update if this person decides to come back, but I'm not even in, which doesn't mean anything because I've been looking at remote viewing and stuff, but I was about to, I'm not even in New Orleans anymore, but I know people astral projecting all type of stuff, child. It's a strange reality. So anyways, that was the first little dream that I had because the Rothschilds are definitely connected to Freemasonry, right? And these like 13 bloodlines and stuff like that. And then the next dream that I ended up having, and then I'm going to get into the main dream. I know it's like 23 minutes in already. It's like 23 minutes already, okay? Anyways, the next dream I ended up having, I had this dream where, and this dream was actually recently where I was like driving somewhere. I don't know where I was driving, but it was back to back. It was like bumper to bumper traffic. And I remember that I was by myself. And I think that Ray and the kids were in a different car. But I was kind of like leading the family somewhere. I don't even know where we were going. But I also felt like it was representing like the reality as a whole. It was very trippy. And I also noticed that like the reality wasn't fully colored. It wasn't fully covered, which is very significant. There's something about colors and I guess maybe the spectrums of light and stuff like that. But I'll talk about the marble realm that's like totally absent of color, that really doesn't like color at all. And I feel like that's where like this kind of microcosm of racism comes from, to be honest with you. That's a whole nother story. But anyways, it was absent of certain colors and certain depths of color. That's what I would say. And I was like looking at that as I was driving in this car, and it was almost like a natural disaster had happened. And we were like in bumper to bumper traffic trying to get out of this natural disaster area, but the whole reality was a natural disaster area. It was very weird. So anyways, as I'm like contemplating on this lack of color, because I knew that there was like a full spectrum of color, not only that, but depth, and I don't know all the, art terminology for, full color, but I knew that there's way more color. So anyways, as I was kind of contemplating on this in the middle of this traffic, all of a sudden, child, I kid you not, the all-seeing eye passed by my car window, and it was humongous. And I saw the eye, and it was blinking, and at first it looked like a black fluffy little ball. It was really like cute. And then as I was like really staring at it, it started looking real strange. Okay, because I was like, I was also conceptualizing that because it was floating. It was like a floating triangle eye, and like the triangle was black. And then the fuzzy thing was in there in black, but it was, kind of in there, but not exactly in the triangle. So I don't know if the triangle was like a portal kind of situation. I couldn't really tell because I was staring at the actual eye itself. And I was like, what type of eyeball is this? Because it ain't no human eye. At first, I was like, oh my gosh, this eye is so cute. And then as I was like staring at it, it was like I was getting a realization of like, wait, oh my gosh, this is like the all-seeing eye. And then I was like, oh, let me pay attention to detail. And I was paying attention to detail. I was like, what type of animal is this? Or creature or something, because it was furry. It was a furry eyeball. Like, it was furry. It wasn't a human eye. It was something else. And I was like, what? So anyways, it was like coming towards the car, and it was massive, and it was also in black and white too, which I also thought was interesting. So I'm not saying black and white like that. It was like, it was these black and white colors when I was peering into it, but like all together when you weren't peering into the eye, because it was different when you were peering into it than when you were just seeing it all together. I don't know, like looking at it as one whole thing, it kind of looked 2D, and then it looked like black and white, like old black and white colorless movies. That's what it looked like. But when you're peering into it, it's like you got this kind of dimensional situation, and it was a furry eyeball. I know I'm like really focusing on it, but it was really tripping me out because I was like, I wanted to reach out and like touch the fur. I'm like, what type of fur is this? Because it wasn't like, I don't know what type of fur it was. It wasn't quite a cat. It wasn't quite a dog. It was something else. I'm like, what type of animal is this eye? And so anyways, as it was coming closer, it was like shooting out a little green beam into the car. And I'm like, okay. So when I looked down, I realized that it put like these put about 4 or 5 green cubes into my lap. And they were like, I always get these words confused. I think it's fluorescent green. Like when you go into like the laser place and your white lights up like green, it looked like that. It was like green fluorescent cubes. And it was like gifts. It was like gifts from the eye. And I was like, oh snap. Like, am I in the Illuminati now? Like, are they trying to induct me or something in the Astrals? And so I knew that like the green was that he was going to come back for, this was definitely a male eye, number one. Let me just say that. This is a male presence, okay? So it was, and do you know what it looked like? It looked like cartoons when they show sugar cubes. That's what it looked like fluorescent green. I mean, it could have been white, right? Because I'm doing the laser thing and it was a green laser. It could have been white sugar cubes and then it just appeared as glowing green cubes. But anyways, it was a gift. It was supposed to be a gift from this eye. And so I was looking at them, and as I was conceptualizing that he was giving me something, I was like, oh no, I need to know like what it is, because it was like he was giving it and it seemed like it was like, a gift, but it was definitely a gift with something attached to it. And I didn't know what the fine print was. And one thing, when you're dealing with soul contracts, you're dealing with any type of agreements with people, especially people that you don't know or you don't remember, you have got to read the fine print. And there are a lot of people in the music industry, entertainment industry that don't like you to talk about, asking a whole lot of questions. There's a lot of people in the spiritual community and spiritual entities that when you start asking for the fine print of like, when I say that I'm accepting this, because it felt like it came with conditions. It didn't feel like, oh, this is just a gift. It felt like I could feel it as I was paying attention to these sugar cubes. I'm going to call them sugar cubes. As I was paying attention to them, I could feel that there was a fine print that wasn't being talked about. That it, like me accepting it meant that he was going to come back at a different point in time, and that he was going to expect something to grow from these cubes. And I didn't know what that meant, because I didn't know what the cubes were. Like, I couldn't really conceptualize what they were in my lap. Like, they obviously weren't ice. And it didn't really feel like sugar, I guess. Even though I wasn't necessarily touching them. But it was like, okay, I'm giving you this, and then I'm going to come back at a later date, and I'm going to want you to have done something with this. But I didn't know what done something with it was. So I tried to I didn't necessarily try to throw them out of the car, but I definitely was like, nah. And I didn't want to touch them with my hands. And that's why I'm saying I can't tell you if it actually felt like sugar or not, but it didn't really look like sugar. I didn't want to touch it with my hands, because I know that when you touch it with your hands, like that puts your energy into it, that infuses your energy into it. And so you can like be attached to it by proxy. Even if you don't accept it, you can be attached to it by proxy if you touch it with your hands. And so I was like holding my hands up, and I was like, I don't know what this comes with. And so I tried to get out of the line, because then I understood that this reality was like all going like in a certain type of way. And we were all going like in one direction towards something. And in that moment, because he like had shot his laser beam. I know this sounds crazy. Like, what is DeeDee talking about? And I haven't even gotten to the main dream yet. I know, child. I know. Okay. Let me get to my point. Okay. I'm gonna have to really do like some timestamps for real. I'm gonna have to get on the timestamps. Okay. So he had shot his laser beam into like probably 3 other cars before he came to mine. So my car, and then Ray and the kids were behind me, and then probably like in the whole reality, like I kid you not, like in the whole reality, we're like the last 4 cars in the reality. And so I knew that he had shot his laser beam into 3 other cars, and then I was the 4th car, which makes sense because I'm also the letter D, right? DeeDee, okay? Which, fun fact, 2 D's makes a full circle, and it's also a circle that you can grab with your hand, which means that you can get right to the center of it, right? Because when you have just a circle itself, you can only touch the outer, the actual ring of the circle. But when you put the 2 D's back to back, you can grab it just like a handbag. And then, of course, 2 4s together makes a trident. So that's like the secret of 4 and 3, which is 7. And then the 77, which is the Wizard of Oz. Oh, goodness. Which of course is 5, which is change, okay? So the Wizard of Oz comes to bring change to the Emerald City. Okay. So I was trying to get out and just like go ahead, because like I said, everybody was going. So we were all in, there was only 2 lanes, okay? 1 lane going to where everybody was going, and 1 lane going away from where everybody was going. So I was like, nah, I don't even know what this is. So I put my hand on the steering wheel, And I was just about to peel out, and I was trying to give Ray the signal, like, nah, we outie. Like, let's go. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what this eye is doing. I don't know what the stipulations are. I don't know what this is. So I'm about to go. And I was like, I'm just going to, like, hide and cloak myself. And I'm just going to, like, quietly just, like, dip out. I promise you, the eye is black, okay? Because literally I was like, I'm just gonna cloak myself and just peel on up out of here and just get out of the reality with me, my husband, and my kids. And we're just gonna, like, dip out, and it's gonna be fine, because I'm sure he's, like, not gonna even remember this, and, like, it'll be fine. And he literally came in front of the car, and he was like, bring that A back. And I was like, let me find out. Let me find out that the eye is black, child. Of course, I'm talking about culturally now, right? Like, I'm talking about culturally black now. And then I got this weird visualization of, like, this person, and they were, like, sitting at this, it really did remind me of Beauty and the Beast. That's exactly what it reminded me of. It reminded me of, like, Beast and Belle, when they were, like, sitting at the table, and then they had the two, I don't know if this is actually a scene, but that's, like, what I was associating to in my mind, because I hadn't even seen Beauty and the Beast at that point for, like, a while. But me and Ray just watched it for Valentine's Day, which I thought was interesting. And it was, like, such a good movie. It's really funny, too. And I'm like, oh, poor Beast. Poor thing. You know what I mean? Like, dang. And then Garçon, which I was taking some Haitian Creole, and I know that Garçon is a man. And that's kind of what he was trying to embody, like, just a arrogant man type of situation. He was like, how do you love the beast? You know, like, it's in the heart what counts. It's in the heart, and that's what counts. Okay, I mean, Hollywood is crazy because they make women fall in love with everything, okay? Vampire Diaries, it was like 10 billion-year-old vampires, and both of them actually were, like, raging serial killers at a point in time. You know, you can fall in love with werewolves, you can fall in love with pretty much anything as long as you feel like they genuinely love you back. A woman will fall for anything, okay? And Ray and I talk about this. I'm like, I just don't like the message that it sends. I just don't like the message that it sends. Women fall in love with anything. Okay. So anyways, I was seeing, like, this person at this table, and, like, they had, like, this, well, anyways, whatever. I don't know how relevant that is. But anyways, that was the other dream that I had. I feel like I had one more that was, like, really short and to the point, too. But I can't really think about it. So let's get to the main dream, okay? And I'm like, I'm like almost 40 minutes in. Let me get to the main dream. So like I said, I'll come back and I'll do, either at the end of this recording, I'll say what day it was. Or I'll put it in the description box below. So on this particular day, I ended up going to sleep, and when I woke up in the Astrals, because I was hyper conscious for this one too, not as lucid as other dreams, because it was still a lot of weird stuff going on, and I didn't really pick up on that. I was just like, this is wild. So in this dream, I ended up where I was walking outside of a park that was close to a family home of mine, okay? And so I was walking from this park, and I was going to one of my relatives' houses, okay? Which was not unusual, like, when I was a child, which I thought was interesting. Because this is, like, a family home that I've not seen in a very long time. And so as I was walking, like, on the street to go back to this relative's house, I remember thinking, like, why am I next to this house? I mean the house, but, like, why am I next to this park? Like, why am I here? You know, and of course it's back in New Orleans. And I don't live in New Orleans anymore. So I was like, why am I even in New Orleans? But again, it wasn't, I guess, crazy enough. So I was just like, I don't know. I guess I'm just going to the house. And so I get to the house and it's looking real strange. That wasn't enough. And I feel like there was something going on. I'm going to have to see if I actually have, I'm going to have to actually like look at the notes, because there was something that was going on in the house before it got to like the main attraction, but I can't exactly remember. I don't know if there was like pieces of the door missing or, child, I don't even remember right now. But something was going on in the house and it really caught my attention. I think it was like something was missing or something. I was trying to like find the pieces of the door, find the pieces of the window. Like I felt like I was trying to like patch stuff up or something, patch it back together. So anyways, I get into the house, and when I get into the house, I see one of my relatives, okay? And so when I see this relative, he's sitting at like this, I feel like it's like the quintessential like desk in like those movies or TV shows where there's like the room that's like the study of the person, and they have like that quintessential like, you know, wooden desk that they sit at and do work at, and you're like not supposed to touch it, and it contains all of the secrets, you know, of the person. He was like kind of sitting at a desk like that, and he was looking directly at me when I walked in the door, which was very creepy. And he was like staring at me like a wolf about to eat somebody. And so I was like, hey. And he didn't say anything. He was just staring. And I was like, okay, is he like deranged? Like he looked deranged. And I was like, okay, do I like play into it and run away? Is he going to chase after me? Do I just like, you know, not play into it and just kind of like, you know, keep looking around or whatever? I didn't really know what to do, because I didn't really know how to take this look. I was like, okay, I'm going to just walk around and see if there's something else for me to see. And then I just kind of quietly mosey my way on out of here. Now that I'm thinking about it, though, because in the dream and even when I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, okay, maybe he was like doing something. Well, no, that's not what I thought, because then I got to the end of it. So anyways, but during this period in time when I was looking at him, I assumed that he didn't know that I was coming there. But he definitely knew I was coming there. And he was waiting for me to come there, now that I realize it. So anyways, so he was in there looking crazy. And so I just kind of deflected that. And I just was like, okay, well, I'll be back in a second. So I went to go walk around the house. Because it's a house I haven't seen in a while. So I was like, oh, let me, you know, walk around and look at some memories and stuff like that. So I was walking around and I saw another relative. And so I started talking to her. And I was like, you know, our other relative, you know, the one that was like staring at me, I was like, he's acting kind of strange. Like, is he okay? And she was like, you know, I think I don't know exactly what's wrong with him, but I would go hide in the back room. And where the back room was, it was back towards the front of the house, but like I would have had to like kick in the window to get out of the house, and it would cause a big old scene. So I was like, and then I was thinking, because I actually did go back there, and in this room, this particular relative had this really, really beautiful mini perfume collection. And so I did go back there to like reminisce and touch the perfumes and things like that. And of course, none of the bottles had perfume in them anymore, so there was no scent or anything like that. But I was just like surveying the room, and I was like, there's just like no way that I could get out of this room without alerting him. And then by the time I actually kick it in, there's going to be glass everywhere. So subconsciously, I'm realizing that like they're definitely there for me. And she knows that he's there for me and that he's going to do something sinister. And I didn't know what that sinister was, but it was definitely a sinister energy on him. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to just go back. I'm just going to try my luck and see if I can just kind of be like, all right, well, it was fun. Bye. All right, well, it was fun. See you later. And that's exactly what I tried. But as I was doing that, of course, he was like, come here. It was creepy. Now, at this point, I'm realizing that he had some type of entity or something like that attached to him, and it wasn't just him. But I didn't really recognize that when he was talking to me in the dream. And so I was like, yeah, you're looking kind of strange. Like something looks off with you. And again, he stopped talking. He was just like staring. I was like, are we just gonna like stare at each other? You know, I don't know if it's supposed to be an intimidating grin, because then it kind of turned to like this evil laugh kind of look, and he wasn't laughing, but you know what I'm saying? It was just very strange. And I just don't really want to play this game. Like, I don't know what we're doing here, but like, I'm not interested. So anyways, at that point, I just decided to run. So I decided to run. I hit the front door, and that's when I realized that the car was gone. Now, at the beginning of the dream, I was walking from this park to this family home, but I knew that I had a car at some point, because I had to have a car. But I couldn't remember what my car looked like. And then I looked on the street and there was no car. So I was like, where did my car go? And then that's when I was like, oh, something's trying to trap me here. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm like trying to run and stuff like that. And then I promise you, I get to like this certain point on on the ground. And this is where I'm like, oh, maybe this was like, I mean, I knew it was like a dream simulation, but I was like, oh, maybe that's why I couldn't remember going to the park, because they hadn't thought the dream out that much. But there's like a specific part on the concrete towards the park. So I was like, let me just run to the park, because maybe there'll be more people at the park. So I hit a certain part on the concrete, and I promise you the whole dream restarted. I promise you. And I was like, hold up. Hold up a second now. Wait a minute, okay? Because I literally like hit that concrete, and it was like I hit a reset button. It was like 2 seconds of like total darkness, and then I was like in the room with him again. And I was like, oh, snap. I was like, oh, snap. Now, I didn't let him know that I had reset and that I knew that I was reset. Do you know what I'm saying? So I knew that he had something to do with this whole dream sequence. So I'm like, oh, snap. Okay. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to just like pretend like, like I don't know that I'm reset. And I'm just going to like act oblivious again. So I'm like, oh, snap. No, I'm like trapped in something. Child, so this time he's staring at me, but he still got this weird grimace on his face, and he's staring at me, and so he's like trying to engage me in conversation now, because I guess he was like, okay, she ran the last time, so I'm gonna try to engage her in conversation. So it was still weird and awkward, because like he still had that same look on his face, and it was such a weird like grimace. And so he was like, how have you been? And I was like, I've been fine. How have you been? And so he said something else, and then I just took off running again, because I was like, let me see if it's going to happen again. Child, I promise you, I got outside, and I knew it was something crazy, because when I got up and ran, he didn't even get up to run. Like, he knew it was going to reset. So I'm like, oh, snap. So as I'm walking, I'm like, okay, I'm running to this part in the concrete, and I know, like, okay, it's probably going to reset again. So I'm like, okay, I don't have the car, because I looked around, the car still wasn't there. Like, I don't have a car. Like, I need to manifest a car. So by the next reset, I need a car. And so this time, though, it was very interesting. So this time, I actually could hear that there was another male presence there that I could not see, who was instructing this family member on what to do. And I literally heard him say, if you keep acting effing weird, that's literally what he said. If you keep acting effing weird, she's going to keep running, and you're not going to get done what you need to get done. So I'm like, by this time, I'm like, okay, it's definitely a trap. I don't know what they're planning. What are they trying to get done? And I don't even have time to be like, who is the second male voice and who is like instructing him right now on whatever it is. I don't even have time for that. So, child, I hit that part in the concrete and it reset. And again, I just pretend like I didn't know it was reset, but I'm consciously aware of everything that's going on. So I get in front of him, and that voice, I can hear the voice this time now. Okay, so with the reset, I can hear the voice this time now. So the voice is like, you need to love bomb her. That's exactly what he said. You need to love bomb her and make her feel like she's a part of the family so that she doesn't keep running. And we can get done what we need to get done. He literally said love bomb. I'm like, and I'm laughing because I'm like, this man had to be like 65, 70 years old. I'm like, how did he even get this terminology, love bomb? How does he even know this terminology? Who's teaching him this? So anyways, that's exactly what he starts doing. He still got this grimace on his face, child. He can't fix his face now. He can't fix his energy. And so he's like, we've missed you and stuff like that and blah, 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 blah. When it's only him and the other person in the house. I'm like, yeah, I missed you guys too. And, I wish that we could have talked a little bit sooner and blah, 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 baby. And then I hit it again. I was like, my car better be out there. Okay. So this time as I'm running outside, I'm greeted by other people in the family. Okay. So I'm like, okay. And they're like holding on to me, like, don't go, it's okay, and there's nothing, blah, 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 whatever. But I see there's finally a car out there. So I jump in the car and I skedaddle, and I'm finally able to break this time loop or whatever the hell it was. And I skedaddle. Now, the interesting thing is that as I break the time loop, I go into this void space, so I don't have the car anymore. And I could feel myself coming back to my body to wake up, like in waking reality. Now, as I'm coming back to my body, I kid you not, this is exactly what I heard. As I'm coming back to my body, I literally see like this overlay of this woman, okay? This older kind of mammy type of woman. And I'm not saying that like I'm just saying that they're like a mammy type of woman, because most people, when I say mammy, you get a visual of what I'm talking about. An older slave-looking woman, West African, probably really deep, dark complexion with like the white, clothing and the, skirt and, picking vegetables out the ground and probably cotton too at some point, with the head wrap on and stuff like that, like a mommy. I'm gonna just call her mommy type of energy. And I see her and she's like picking vegetables out the ground. And there's like these big old like collard looking greens. I'm assuming they're like collard greens. And she's picking these things out the ground. She was like, girl, you're Gullah Geechee. And I'm like, what? And she was like, Gullah Island. And I used to watch Gullah Island when I was little. I loved that in Bende. It was like one of my favorite shows to watch as a little kid. She was like, you are Gullah Geechee. And I'm like, baby, I don't know what that is. But she was like, Gullah Geechee. And I was like, okay. Then as she was telling me that, there was another black woman who came up to me, and she was like closer to me. On my left side, she was a more tangible energy to me. And we're a little bit closer in age too. And she was like, this is a very high level of magic. And I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, that space that you just came from, it's a very high level of magic. And this is something called Bende magic. And I was like, Bende magic? And she was like, yeah, Bende magic is the ability to force a spirit into a body to live out an entire lifetime. She was like, you've been forced to live out this lifetime. And I was like, what? She was like, I can't tell you anymore right now, but this is Bende magic. You need to look into Bende magic. And I was like, what? So you can imagine my surprise when I woke up. Okay, because at this point, I'm in the transition of waking up. So I am in that in-between realm of consciousness, right? And it's a little bit different when you're in the in-between and you're going into the dream world. You're a lot more conscious when you've come from the dream world and you're coming back to your body. You're a lot more conscious in the in-between realm. So I knew exactly what the woman said, Gullah Geechee. I didn't know how to spell it because I didn't remember Gullah Island as far as like, how to spell it, but I just kind of sounded it out. And then Bende, And I saw her spell out Bende, so I knew how Bende was spelled. So my surprise when there's Gullah Geechee, and that the people who actually created Gullah Gullah Island were Gullah Geechee people. And I was like, what? And that's how I knew that, like, the dream was real, child. And so then I went into researching Bende, and I still don't have like a really solid understanding of it, but it's real. And it's very interesting because as I was doing QHHT and just kind of pondering on the concept of soul contracts, I was like, there's a lot of people here, like certain people, when they say like, oh, you had a soul contract and you came here, you know, off your free will and you decided to come, certain people's lives, possibly you could look at it and be like, okay, maybe you came here for these lessons. And then most people who become quote unquote awakened will explain all of the BS that happened in their life and be like, oh, I asked for this because they become quote unquote aware and awakened. So they'll kind of explain all of that stuff away and be like, oh, this is what I needed in order to become awakened, which is a lie. Because I'm like, that's where you came from. So you didn't need pain and destruction and molestation and all the crazy things that people go through in order to go back to where you came from. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, you come from awareness. You don't need this to be aware of yourself. And so I remember that there was one person who I was like friends with at a point in time, and we were having this like really intense conversation about people's struggles. And she was like, you need to stop, you know, worrying so much about people because a lot of them are just NPCs. And that just rubbed me the really wrong way. And it's not even something that I'm still like irritated by now, because I do understand how people get to that point to where they try to explain every negative thing away by like, oh, this person's doing this because they're an NPC. But I'm like, but if you actually look at your life before you become awakened, somebody from your perspective would have looked at you in your position and been like, oh, you're just an NPC and we don't need to help you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people have come from really tragic home lives. Let's just use that example. A really tragic home life, right? And then that person becomes awakened and they get introduced to this concept of like an NPC, a non-player character, someone who's a sitting duck, someone who's supposed to not have a soul germ, okay, a soul spark. And they're like, oh, you know, all the other people that are going through these crazy things or doing crazy things are just simulation characters. They're not real people. But I'm like, but you understand that before you became awakened, you were in their position. And you turned out to be a real person. I mean, unless they're NPCs too, I don't know. Like, somebody is using our driveway to back out of. That's interesting. Like, I've never seen that before. And like, they came in so fast. I'm like, you better not hit our car, friend. Anyways, and I don't even know why they did that, because they just turned around and went and it's our neighbor. That's so weird. They just turned around and went. Okay, I don't know what that's about, y'all. I don't know what that's about. Because they didn't even need to turn around in our direction, because they were... I'm not going to even get out, because I don't think they'd even be comfortable knowing that I was in the car when they just did that just now. But anyways, we don't always make the perfect decisions, right? Sometimes we do weird stuff. Whatever. I'm not going to focus on that. But it was very interesting that I was talking about NPCs just now and that happened. It's very interesting. But anyways... my point in saying that was that, you know, we were like in a disagreement, and I was like, you know, the thing that makes more sense than everybody who's experiencing hardship or making crazy decisions as an NPC is probably that some people got forced into contracts. And it was like, no, that's not possible. I'm like, okay. I mean, I know, like, sometimes we really want to hold on to this idea that, like, you know, the New Age movement really kind of try to sell everybody this idea of, like, you've got complete control over your life and that, you know, you can create every single circumstance and blah, 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 blah. But I'm like, that's just obviously not the reality. Like, to say that you were a part of this high vibrational consciousness and you with your team of supposedly higher dimensional consciousness guys literally came up with the idea for you to be a 2-year-old and get molested by your stepdad and then go on like a, 30-year crack binger, being like a prostitute at 16 and passed around like all of New York, to say that like that was your step into higher consciousness. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it sounds okay, like with very little detail and like just in theory, but when you actually think it out, it literally makes zero sense. I'm like, okay, if these are the higher selves, then yeah, I don't know what to tell you. But so this dream for me like confirmed that, because she was like, yeah, this is very, very high magic, and it is the magic of entrapping a spirit to live out a human lifetime. And what she said also, the last thing that she said, I forgot to mention this, and this is very, very important. And it's actually really, really sinister. But it was very interesting. And she was like, sometimes they will pick certain people to do this to because they know that like you won't be, like let's say for example, these higher vibrational souls, right? You won't be like hurt to the point that you break, like your mind breaks or your consciousness breaks, especially like not past a point that you can repair. But she said that what happens is that over lifetimes, what can happen is that the spirit becomes so heavy with empathy, so much heavy with all of the things that other people experience in life, that it has emotional scars that can build up over lifetimes. And that's what they are going for, which I was like, wow. Which of course the answer is not to treat everybody like an NPC and be like, oh well, you're not gonna mess up my soul. That's not the answer either, which I haven't really figured out exactly what the answer would be, but I know that's not it. So I have to do some more research. But I did think that was interesting as far as what the motivation was to leave emotional scarring from lifetime to lifetime. So this is like a very planned out thing. This is not just like one human lifetime. This is something that they planned for a while, which of course, if you listen to my video that I made, oh wait, did I release that video? I don't think I released it yet, but I'm going to talk about Yah's cub. Okay, which is Jacob. In that dream, you'll hear about how next lifetime they were trying to get me to come back and be in a very painful situation, which I'll talk about that. But I thought that that'd be really interesting to talk about. And of course, as always, if you're having very interesting dreams or connected dreams, I would love to hear about it in the comment section. You can also email me. I love talking about dreams and things like that. I also do offer dream interpretation services if you also want to use that email as well. And yes, my friends, that's what I have. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe to the channel, share this video with someone who could have experienced something similar. Yeah, and I'll be back in the next video. Bye.